So we're going to discuss speccing your dry room with dehumidifiers. There's multiple different choices, routes that people want to go. There's DX dehumidification, which Cannadri does. There's also the inverter, which we now have. And there's some facilities that will use a desiccant for really low temperatures, but the price point on that isn't very attainable. So not many people are using that these days.
Yeah, there's other challenges with desiccant too, right? You have to have it in and out. You need to temper the air that's coming into the space. Yeah. So the air that's coming in, you have to obviously temper or cool it, right? To make sure that you have the reactive chemical reaction that takes the desiccant to make it happen. So it's one of those things. You went that way for a bit. We saw some people, almost a wave of people going to dry rooms using desiccant, and now it's kind of gone away, especially now that you've got low temperature dehumidifiers like ours on the market that can actually get down to low temperatures. But when it comes to sizing, this is another question, sizing dry rooms, right? It's a whole other equation, right? You're not using water in, water out, you're not using lights. So what's the methods that you see?
Yeah, so when you're speccing your dry rooms, it's usually based off, the amount of biomass going into the room. That's going to be, that end dried weight's usually going to be 25% of that wet weight. So
that 75% is basically your moisture, right?
It's how much moisture is coming out of that room.
And one thing I see that I think is a part of the issue is that people will take that wet weight, the 75%, and they'll go, okay, we'll divide it over how many days I want to dry it for, 14 days, right? Yeah. So that would only work out to, let's just say we use 1,500 pounds of biomass. That would only work out to be like 50 pints per day. And the problem is everybody wants to dry you need to dry that product mostly the first 48 hours, right? So when I do those calculations, I like to just take it the first 2 days because you want it 90%, 80, 90% for the first 2 days. So you almost can take that whole wet weight and calculate it over the first 2 days. In that case, let's say you had 1,500 pounds, right? You'd probably be about 300 pints that you'd need, right? So and that would be more of an accurate number, what you might see for that space, right?
And a lot of these drying spaces now, the thing is everybody wants to cure at lower temperatures. Everybody say it kind of protects the trichomes, protects the terpenes. There's less kind of degradation when you're curing at lower temps. So doing those lower temps also means that the capacity of your units is far less than what the units are spec'd for. So that's a lot of time you're going to have to somewhat over-spec if you're doing the formulas of dividing your biomass weight over the period of the drying time.
Or find out our capacity at a given condition, right? If you want to cure at 58 degrees or 60 degrees, get that information from the manufacturer, or from us, wherever you're using for your dehumidifier, and make sure you have that number so you can make sure that you're sizing right. But the other thing a lot of people aren't aware of, actually we have actual advanced parameter settings in our units, right? Because what we find is one size doesn't fit all, but the other thing is if you're using it in a dry room and you want to do a real slow, low temperature cure, you really have to, you can adjust the parameters to make it actually more effective or work better in that scenario.
And
we had one of the bigger cannabis players in the Canadian market that was using a competitor's product. They were curing their product at, 55, 56 degrees. They were saying their dehumidifiers did get 2-3 minutes of runtime dehumidification before going to defrost, right? Like almost completely useless. So they're showing graphs because they've got this, sophisticated building automation system, and they're showing all these graphs of these big spikes. And so I said, well, try one of our dehumidifiers, see how you like it, right? And I'm like, here, we have an advanced parameter setting where you can set it. In that case, we had the defrost temperature set at -4, so you get way more runtime. And I think even in that situation, it was just over 30 minutes of runtime before you would try to go into a defrost, right? Which is incredible. Like you have 55 degrees, that's where, DX dehumidification is really challenged because obviously the lower the temperature, the more ice that's going to accumulate on that coil, right? So yeah, those advanced settings are important. And I think we need to make it more aware to customers that, hey, if you're in a dry room or if you have a low temperature scenario, like let us know or go through our manual and we have an advanced parameter setting for getting this set up, or call us or email us, right? Contact us and we can make sure that we set that up and make sure we can give you the information that would help you dial that space in.
No, 100%.